Okay, it's time to start working on our interior, and the first thing we're going to do is our zipper pocket. And in this pattern she has a zipper overlay on the pocket. You would go in and use the pattern piece and actually mark the cutout for the to line up where you're going to lay this. And because I failed to do so, I'm just going to use a ruler, and I found my center, and I'm going to do it that way. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a thin bead of glue, as suggested, around the exterior, or I should say the outside of the zipper overlay. And I'm not gonna use big gobs of it, so I'm just going along the very outside edge and laying down a small bead. This glue gets real tacky real quick. This is just going to hold it in place while you top stitch that outer edge. Okay, I'm going to pick this up carefully. Find my center. I'm going to try to lay it down without smearing glue everywhere. Line my ruler back up where I had it. And this is not easy. Over to the side like this, but we're going to make it work. And I'm just butting this up to the edge of my ruler to make sure I get it somewhat straight. That's pretty good. So I'm going to give that just a second to dry. Usually grabs pretty quick. And then we're going to top stitch around this outer edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. And I'm going to pull me some long tails here. Get my clips out of my way. This machine, if you don't hold its tails, it will act ugly when you go to start, and you will jam it in a heartbeat. So that's why you see me grabbing my tails all the time. Alright, so we're going to go pretty slow. I'm not back stitching at the beginning. We will secure that stitch when we come around and end. Okay, if you need to stop and pivot a little bit, you may have to hand crank. That's fine too. Just, you know, take it a stitch at a time. We're not in a hurry. Sometimes you can find that sweet spot on your foot pedal and take it stitch by stitch, and then sometimes it just runs away from you. Okay, I'm just going a few at a time. Needle down and then pivot a little. One more time. Okay, I got a little close to the edge there, but I'll slow down and hand crank a little. Okay, and I'm going to make sure I have these out of the way. And then slowly take this curve. Your ultimate goal is to line back up with your very first stitch. Ooh, that looks good. So I'm going to come that last stitch, back stitch, and done. Okay. And there you have it. It looks pretty nice. Okay. Our next step is we are going to cut out the centerpiece. And of course I took my scissors back over to the table. I'm going to go grab them. So basically you are going to just kind of give yourself some starting room, and this is not like your traditional zipper. You're actually going to go in behind and you're going to trim all this out. Getting pretty close to the stitch line. Just be careful of your overlay piece on the front. You definitely don't want to cut any of that away. there you go. Cut that out. Now we're going to take our zipper, and you want to make sure your zipper is closing towards the left. I have glue on my fingers. I've put double-sided tape on both edges of my zipper. You can use the tape, you can use glue, whichever you prefer. And I'm going to peel off the bottom. And then I'm going to line up the bottom edge of my zipper. You want those teeth pretty much centered. I think I want to pull that down some. Get your zipper pull out of the way. I did not have the right size zipper that's called for in the pattern, so I'm just using zipper by the yard. Got the bottom down. Peel the paper off the top. Okay. So your zipper's on. Now we are going to stitch. What are we going to do next? Okay, our zipper's on. We're going to turn this over. And then we are going to take a piece of double-sided tape and lay it to the bottom side of the zipper tape. Or you could use glue. So you're going just below the zipper. And then we have to grab our zipper pocket. Excuse me one second. This is our zipper pocket. Move these back out of the way. And you are going to lay right sides of the zipper pocket down on the tape. I think. Yes. Okay. We're going to remove our tape. Keeping this pretty squared. Let me find my center real quick. I see the center of my lining piece. How does that look? How does that look? Pretty good. Yeah. This one I could bring down just a smidge. Okay. Then Because this is the first time I've made this and I'm trying to follow the directions, so bear with me. So we're going to flip right side up. And we're going to sew along this side of the zipper at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is the first time I've done it this way. And again, let me pull a long tail so I have something to hang on to. And we're going about 1/8 of an inch from that edge. Get under that foot. And do not backstitch at the beginning or the end here either. Hold on a second. Let me check. Yep. I want to make sure I had my pieces turned the right way before I got started. Okay, when you get up here near the zipper, stop with your needle down and pull that out of the way. And then just keep coming forward. And one more. Okay. Then we're going to pull our front threads to the back. So if you grab your thread and just kind of twirl it, you'll start that little loop of that top thread. And then pull it straight up. Okay? And we're going to tie that off. And we're going to do the same thing over here. Okay. Now we're going to take some more double-sided tape. And we're going to run it just below the seam line. And when we pull it down and when we fold it down at that seam line and stick it to that tape, it will keep it from getting caught in the zipper, which in most cases, I don't think I've ever had that happen. Okay. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to run double-sided tape or glue along the top side of the zipper. And then to fold the pocket up, I'm going to find my center again. And you can measure here just to make sure you're pretty straight. This one could stand to come up a little bit. Kind of keeps you square. Alright. And then we're going to flip it over. And we are going to start stitching where we stopped. And come up, across, and down. And you don't need to back stitch, just we're going to pull the thread through and tie off again just as we did before. That one I got a little close, but I'm okay. Okay, and we're going to pull those front threads to the back and tie them off. Okay, we're going to turn it over And we are going to stitch do we do the top? No, just the two sides. And get as close as you can to the zipper. I probably should have left some excess zipper out, but I didn't, so I'm going to have to go with what I have. Next time I know that I'll need to do that. And we're stitching all the way down to that folded edge. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Coming up the other side. Come on, you silly thing. And there we have our zipper pocket all closed up. That is done. Next on the to-do list is your slip pocket. So we are going to take our slip pocket that I have here somewhere. Slip pocket. So if I mark, I'm using a waterproof canvas, so I have to do this a little bit different. I'm going to mark at 1 inch. Then when I turn it over, it will have turned over by 1/2 inch. We're going to do this on both sides. If you were using cotton or sateen or anything like that, you could just take it to the iron and create that crease. But I'm not going to be able to do that with the materials that I chose. So that is totally on me. More double-sided tape. It will be your friend if your machine can tolerate it. Okay. And I'm just turning my edge up to the line that I drew. And that will be my 1/2 inch that I need to turn over. And same with the other side. Okay. Okay. I'm going to clip these to hold this because we folded it up, raw edges up to meet one another. And I'm just going to clip them. Kind of hold it in place for me. Now we're going to take our trim piece, which is a little bigger, but that's okay. We can trim that down later. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the long edges of our trim piece. And I'm actually going to draw a line down the center so I can line it up halfway decent. So I'm going to remove one side. And I'm going to take make sure these are flat. And I'm going to take this and line it almost up to the top to meet that line. I'm leaving just the slightest little bit because I'm using waterproof canvas. And I've got these edges folded in. It's going to be a little bit thicker. And I want these to be even on both sides when I fold this over. And so to accomplish that, I'm just giving myself a little bit of wiggle room. I'm not putting it all the way up to my marked line. Okay. So we're going to top stitch about a 1/4 inch from the folded edge. Ideally, I should have trimmed before I sewed that together. But it'll be alright. I'm going to trim it up now. Just be careful not to cut the folded edge of your fabric. Okay. My bobbin's getting low. And because I missed on the back side, even as I thought I had those, I still missed on the back side. I'm going to go and I'm going to do one more row, about 1/8 of an inch above this first row I did. And I'm okay with that. This is my bag anyway. Next time, obviously, I will be more careful. And, you know, show you that we all make mistakes. Even as hard as we try not to. The double stitching will just tie in with the double stitching we got going on the outside. So it's fine. And we can put this, it can be our inside of our pocket. So we'll never see it, we'll just see this out here. Okay. Alright, so gotta go find my pattern piece. Okay, so on the pattern piece for the slip pocket, there's markings for these lines. This one here that I drew, that's just indicating the center of my pocket. And then I measured 1 inch out on either side of that line. So my stitch lines are going to be the 2 outer ones. So we're going to line this up 4 inches down. I'm going to find my center of this as well first. And I'm just finger pressing. This usually leaves a pretty nice crease in the canvas. And you want to measure 4 inches down. And that's going to go right here. Okay. Now to help hold that in place till I get started, I'm going to fold up the bottom and clip. My clips will reach the bottom of my pocket. Okay, so we are going to stitch a double line of stitching just like we did before. We can actually start here on this side, and we can come down, come all the way down, turn, and go up, across, down, then across, up, across, down, and there. So let me get myself back to 4 inches. Okay, it didn't move. I'm actually going to just scooch over here and get started. I'm going to check my bobbin first. I should make it. Okay. And I'm going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And I am going to back stitch and secure this pocket up at the top. Move this down just a smidgen. Let me see where that ends up. That will be okay. I'm going to see where this ends up. I need to take about 1/2 stitch. I'm going to pull back just a little bit, down, pivot, and right up the edge. I'm following the edge of my inside foot on the line. And I'm actually going to come past my stitching, my top stitching, and get right up to the edge of my accent piece. Yep, I'm going to have to take one more little, I'm going to pull back a little bit. Then work my way back down. And I'm actually going to back stitch to go back and meet that previous line. And then keep coming forward again till I get up to this one. And that was perfect. I think I can move off that clip now. It's a nice little pocket here to put maybe pin, something of that nature. Okay, and then we're going to turn, come one stitch, and then I'm going to pull back just a smidgen, come back down. Not perfectly straight, but it's close enough for me. Now I'm going to lift, turn. I am going to back up to meet with my previous stitch and continue around the rest of the pocket. Let's see where we end up perfect. Okay. Okay, now we have our slip pockets. You have some little hairy threads here. Just be careful, don't burn your vinyl. I can wipe that chalk off later with a damp cloth. And then here we have our slip pockets. As per the instructions, now we are going to take the zipper pocket side and the slip pocket side, and we're going to put them right sides together. I didn't mark the center of this one. Oh, there it is. Okay, we are going to sew. We're doing a drop-in lining, which it's been many years since I've done one of those. So we don't have to worry about leaving a birthing hole or anything like that. So we're going to sew half-inch seam allowance all the way around the 3 sides. Nope. Forgot to take my clip off. That looks bad. I'm taking that out. I was daydreaming about something else and totally got away from me. That's fine. Only about 1.5 inches, so it's not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to go back a few stitches from where I veered off so I can secure that part of the seam there where I ripped out the threads. Okay, and trim off all your threads. And then we are going to trim out our seam allowance to about 1/4 inch. So basically just half. It will leave less bulk. Then we're going to box our corners. Then we are through with this part of the lining. We're going to make our recessed zipper panel. There's 2 ways you can do a closure for the bag. One is with a zipper, recessed zipper panel. And then one is you can use magnetic snaps. I'm going to do the zipper today. I'm going to go unload my camera again because I don't want to lose the footage, and I will be back. Okay, so we're going to box the corners real quick, which basically we are going to pull out these corners and line up these seams so that they meet one another. And you want to open that seam allowance. And you're going to sew this at 1/2 inch. So you want to make sure that your seams line up at least 1/2 inch down. Not just line them up at the top here. I always look under here to make sure they're lining up. And you can kind of feel it when you push it together with your fingers. So again, 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to go from one side to the other. Make sure that seam's open. And you can do a little back stitch here just to give a little bit of extra. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm sorry guys, I'm not a fast sewer at all. I know this video is going to be a year long. I may break it up into several bits and pieces, so I don't lose you and I don't put you to sleep. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and trim this up as well. I'm just going to pretty much just cut it in half. Okay. We are through with our lining. So I'm going to get the pieces ready for the zipper and I'll be back. Okay, now we are up to the closure of our bag, and there are two options. You can use magnetic closure, or you can choose to do the zipper closure, which is what I'm going to do. I'm using Zipper by the Yard, and I have taken my zipper, put on my pull, and then I have turned my ends at a 90-degree angle. And then I went to my other machine and just stitched these in place. This will be inside the seam allowance, so I'm not worried about it. And then I also stitched across the bottom just to make sure I don't lose my zipper pull in the process. And I'm going to singe that down at the bottom since it's fraying. You're going to have two pieces of your outer material and two pieces of lining. You're going to mark 1 inch in on all 4 sides. And on one end, you're going to turn it up. You're going to use double-sided tape, turn it up to your mark. You do that on all 4 pieces. And then you're going to take your vinyl pieces, or your exterior pieces, and you are going to measure 3/4 of an inch from the unfolded end. Nope, about a 1/2 inch. And you are going to put double-sided tape all the way down to about 1/8 of an inch from the edge on both pieces. Then we're going to open up our zipper, and we want to line up the edge of our zipper with the edge of our vinyl piece, which means you're essentially going to be kind of flipping it backwards. Okay? If that makes sense. You want zipper down, and you're going to line up this edge. So I'm just going to pull off my double-sided tape release paper. I'm going to get this up close to me. So I have my zipper face up. I'm going to flip it face down, and I'm going to line it up right there at the beginning of that tape. Right along the edge of my exterior piece. Just like so. I'm going to take my other piece. I'm actually going to lay it right next to this one. Make sure I get them lined up fairly straight. I'm going to take my zipper. I'm going to flip it over. Again, start right up here at the edge of my tape. Line this up along the edge. And these should be pretty even where they start and stop. And this is going to be like twisted, but that's what you want. Hold on a second. This one, I think I did backwards. Like this and like this. So yes, I had that one flipped backwards, so double check before you start sewing. So it's just going to look and feel a little weird to start, but you'll be fine. Then we're going to take a lining piece. We're going to lay it right sides down. We're going to line up the folded edge here. And we're going to clip this all the way down. If this edge does not meet quite right, that's fine. We can work that out in the next step. And we'll take the second one and do the same thing. Okay, and then we're going to sew at about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I just use the edge of my foot so I don't actually change my foot to put on my zipper. But what I can do is I can trim down these panels. She gives you the measurements of what it should be finished. And I can trim these down to meet that finished requirement before we top stitch everything together. So ultimately we should be able to open these up, fold this over. We can finish this edge because we're going to fold this in like so, and then fold that over. We're going to use some tape, fold that over, and you want both sides to meet. And you can use some tape to tape it down if you feel better about that. And then top stitch all the way around. Remember to back stitch. Okay. Okay. So we're going to take this edge. I'm going to trim off this little bit of zipper right here. It's just a tiny little bit. Okay. And we're going to put some tape that I dropped in the floor. And you're going to put double-sided tape right along this edge. And we're going to fold it down onto that 1-inch line that we drew previously. And you're going to have a little hump here where that zipper is. Okay. And then we're going to grab this and fold it down. And I'm going to clip it together. Okay, so you can see because my seam allowance was off a little bit, my exterior is a little bit longer than my interior, and that's okay. I can adjust that. If I need to trim some off, because when you close it shut, it needs to be a particular length anyway. And I'm going to trim this off. Sorry I seem to be struggling today. I'm got a little smidgen of a headache. Might have to stop and go take something. And ideally, these will end up the same length. And since I'm using waterproof canvas, it's a little bit more stiff and harder to maneuver than using a softer interior fabric. So let's zip this up and see what we have. And they look pretty good. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and top stitch all the way around. And I'm going to start over here with this one. I'm doing about 1/8 of an inch. And I am going to back stitch. I'm getting up to hump here. Just going to take my time. And I got another hump up here where my zipper is, so it's going to be a little difficult. But I think we can do it. And I want to make sure that my edges are lined up. And down we go. There's what we have down both sides. I'm not going to go down this edge yet because I want to measure when I zip the two together. I want to measure the width. This one may be a little stubborn. Got a big hill to climb. And I'm actually going to hand walk it. Coming downhill. And then I should be good to take off. Okay, we're coming up to another bulky area. If you have to hand walk, that's fine. Okay, let's see what I have here. Okay, I have approximately wow. Actually, not too bad. Where's my other ruler? It's not enough. I'm going to work it into the seam allowance. I think it'll be okay. Okay, so now we're going to attach our zipper panels to our facing. And I just want to make sure I got them going the right way, which I don't, so I'm going to swap them. I'm still trying to keep my pattern lined up and the scales going in the right direction. So I am going to swap them over. During the prep, you did a 1-inch line down from the top. So just make sure that you are cognizant of that. And we are going to be clipping this to the bottom edge. And so I have my centers marked on both. This one I just did a little clip. And we are going to line up our centers. Then I'm going to check to make sure I have these going in the right direction. I could have possibly just lost that perfect scaling, if you will. I did. One's going to be backwards. Unless, let's look at this one. Well, come on, Sherry. So if I put that one there, fold it over, it's going to be backwards. So what I can actually do is I can mark this line out, mark out top, and let's try it from the other direction and see what happens. Mark that off, mark out this line. I'm going to come up with a 1-inch line from the other edge. Creativity in the live. Okay, so now this will be my top. This will be my bottom. So let's place this one here, lining up my centers again. Gonna double check. Maybe all for nothing, but you never know. Ta-da! You can see my scales still going the same way. So we're gonna go with that. If you were using a smooth vinyl, it wouldn't matter, or smooth leather. I just chose difficult vinyl for a first time make. But hopefully it is a teaching moment for those watching. Okay, and now we'll mark this one top. And now this will be our bottom. Bottom, bottom, center, and both ends. Check it. Again, it's going the same way. Okay. Okay, we're clipping these together. And then we are going to go over, make sure I have them right. Here and here. Okay, and now we are going to sew these at a 3/8 inch seam allowance from here to here. Be sure to back stitch. So now when we fold this up, like so, our scales are going in the same direction. Again, same direction. Pretty well lined up. Okay, sorry for the sudden stop. Hubby walked upstairs to ask me a question. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are, with the right sides together of your facing, we are going to sew the ends together. Making sure we have our tops matching our top, the new top we made. I'm going to clip these in place. Be sure to pull your zipper tails out of the way. Okay, we're going to sew down each short end at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, and now what we are going to do is we are going to put some double-sided tape on the seam allowance, and then we're going to trim up like we did before to take some of the bulk out. I'm going to do this on both ends, both sides. Okay, and before we flatten these out, on the top side, remember we're working with our top end, we are just going to trim some of this bulk out of both pieces. Then we can take this seam and open it up. And flatten that down. So that you have something that looks kind of like this. And you could go, you know, a little bit further than that. I'm going to just leave mine as is and see how we go. So it did reduce the bulk up here, which is what we wanted. Alright, so now what we're going to do is just like we did on the exterior. We're going to put double-sided tape essentially all around this top edge, and we're going to fold it down to meet that 1-inch line that was our note to be the top of our bag. Now if you have a roller or something, you can really that would really help you flatten out that seam. That would be just great. I don't, and I'm going to try to do this fairly quickly because I know that the tape does not stay stuck to the material on the back of the vinyl for a long period of time. And I want to avoid clips if possible, but I may need to use them because they tend to leave little indentations in the vinyl. Okay, so I'm going to meet right up there where I started off. And we're going to start turning this top edge down to our line. And I'm really trying to push that down. Your zipper tails are going to be a pain until you get to a certain point. And you did notice that I took my zipper head off, my zipper pull. It was just going to be easier putting this all together without the zipper pull on. And the instructions, the pictures in the instructions show pretty much that being done anyway. Just makes it a little easier. I really, really, really want to top stitch that. But it's not called for. Because that is what we're going to sew it onto our bag. So with that said, we need to be cognizant of how we drop this into our lining. Excuse me. Normally we put the zipper pocket towards the back side of the bag, and we want to make sure that our zipper opens and closes in the correct manner. We're actually going to turn this out like so, and my zipper so I have my zipper closure to the left. I have the zipper panel closure to the left. We are going to drop the top of this down to the inside of our lining. And I'm going to find my centers. I'm going to match those up. And before you sew, this is the time you want to check to make sure this fits perfectly to your lining. Now's the time to make adjustments. Okay. I'm going to come over here to my side seams. Let me get a couple more clips. I want to make sure this stays on both sides. It doesn't get wonky. Okay, now we're going to come to the sides. We're going to see how that fits. And you can see I got a little extra. I'm going to come over and look at this one. This one is the same. So I'm thinking I need to take up that seam just a little bit on each end. So I'm going to make some adjustments. You may have to peel up your double-sided tape, but we can just trim that off. And put more back down after we fix our edge. See, that just peels right up. And I think I'm going to go ahead and come in about 1/4 inch more from both sides. Maybe an 1/8 inch. I'm going to come in another 1/8. I don't want to overdo it because I'll have You'll see the perforation holes in the vinyl. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. And all I'm going to be doing is taking a little bit more each time. And then I'm going to fold these out. Probably going to take out this first stitch line so I can get this flat. Trim this down a little more. And then put double-sided tape. I'm not going to make you... This video is like 100 hours long anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and fix the mistake. Well, it's not a mistake. It just happens. And I'll be back. Alright, so I fixed my facing. And all I did was came in 1/8 of an inch from my first seam that I made on each side. Took out the previous seam, picked that out. Put the tape on again. I trimmed, smashed it down. Same thing on the other end, 1/8 of an inch. In, tape, trim. And now I have it inside of my lining, the right side of my lining, with the wrong side, basically, where you can see the wrong side of the facing. That makes sense. And I am making sure that my zipper end will be zipping up this way, the same, if you can see, as this one. So my zipper will be going to the left for closure. So I'm all clipped in place. I lined up my centers on the long ends, and I lined up these seams on the sides. And now we are just going to stitch all the way around with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we're going to sew this up with about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Back stitch. Not a very good angle for the camera, but it's all I have right now. I'm going to do a little back stitch there where those pieces meet. One right here at that seam. Okay, and remember to watch your zipper tails. And our folded edge keeps coming unfolded, but we can clip that. Okay, and now we can pull this out. You want to turn this seam to the bottom. I've got a lot of thickness in there with the waterproof canvas. So if you're using cotton, yours may sit nicer than mine, but for the most part, looks pretty good. Alright, so now's the time to put our lining into our exterior.